There's a strange kind of silence when someone realizes they've ruined everything. A silence so thick it drowns the music, the voices, even the air. She stood there with a champagne glass shaking in her hand, mascara dripping down one cheek, like the truth finally escaped her pores. I don't think she knew I was watching. Not at first. 3 years. That's how long it had been since the last words she ever said to me were, "You'll never become anything without me." She was wrong. And yet, even as I watched her from across that glossy ballroom floor, something in me cracked. Not because I still loved her. No, I'd buried that a long time ago. But because in that moment, she didn't look cruel, or cold, or even confident. She looked lost. The kind of lost I knew intimately. And before you ask, no, I didn't plan it. I didn't show up to flex or make a scene. I didn't even know she would be there. But fate's a twisted playwright. And I guess tonight was the curtain call. The man nobody noticed. Most people don't notice the guy who fixes their Wi-Fi, files the quarterly report, or remembers everyone's birthday without expecting thanks. That was me, the invisible man. For years, I existed in the background of other people's spotlight, the quiet husband, the soft one, the guy whose name you forget right after he introduces himself. And you know what? I didn't mind it, until I realized she did. When the walls first spoke. You ever hear the echo of your own breakdown in an empty room? I have. It was a Wednesday when I first realized something was wrong. Not dramatic, just off. She wore perfume to take the trash out. She smiled at her phone more than at me. She started locking the bathroom door. We didn't have secrets before. Then came the late nights. The out-of-town retreats. The sudden coldness like I'd said something unforgivable but never knew what. And still, I said nothing. Because good husbands don't pry. Because I believe people drift sometimes. Because I thought love meant patience. But patience is just slow bleeding when you're the only one waiting to heal. The envelope. I never told anyone this part before. Not even my therapist. One morning, 2 weeks before she left, I found an envelope under her pillow, addressed to someone named Alec. Inside was a Polaroid of her in a hotel room, wearing the necklace I gave her on our anniversary. On the back, "Last night was better than our wedding night. Yours always, L." I didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't confront. I just made eggs, kissed her on the forehead, went to work like nothing happened. I guess I wanted to see how far she'd go before she broke the illusion. Turns out, not far at all. She was gone by the next Friday. No note, no goodbye, just an emptied closet and a bank account missing exactly $3,800. But that's not the story. That's not why I'm writing this. I'm writing because tonight, in a hotel lit by chandeliers and fake laughter, I saw her again. And this time, she was the one breaking, not me. The thing about pain is, it doesn't announce itself like a trumpet. It creeps in, soft, quiet, dressed like routine. That's how I missed it the first time. That's how she got away with it for so long. But tonight the pain was on her face, and for once, I was the one watching from the shadows. She hadn't seen me yet. Not really. Sure, her eyes swept the room a few times, glassy and overwhelmed, but they didn't land on me. Or maybe they did, and I just didn't register. I don't exactly look like the same man anymore. Back then, I was soft-spoken, always in hoodies, always tired. Now, suit sharp enough to make people apologize for underestimating me. Hair cut, shoulders squared, no wedding ring. Still, I didn't approach. Not immediately. I stood by the edge of the room, pretending to read the agenda card on the cocktail table while my heart tried to escape through my ribs. I thought I'd feel anger, that molten kind of fury you see in movies. But I didn't. I felt something way worse, curiosity. What could have broken her? The woman who once told me emotions were for people who didn't know how to think. The woman who laughed when I cried during a documentary about orphaned elephants. She called it cute. She said I felt too much. Now she was the one wiping tears from the corners of her eyes in a room full of strangers and sparkling rose. There was a man beside her. Tall, slouch posture, tattoo of something abstract running up his neck. He was trying to talk to her, maybe calm her down, maybe apologize, I couldn't tell. She just kept shaking her head slowly, one hand still gripping the champagne glass like it was the last anchor to reality. A small part of me wondered if that was Alec. If it was, he wasn't what I expected. But maybe that's the point. I never expected anything she did. Not the affair. Not the lies. Not the vanishing act that gutted my life like a fish. Why should the man she threw everything away for be any more predictable? I watched her excuse herself and head to the hallway near the restrooms. The tall guy didn't follow. He just stood there, rubbing the back of his neck like a kid who just got caught drawing on the wall. That's when my brain screamed at me, "Don't. Just leave it. Let the past rot where it belongs." But my legs didn't listen. They never do. I followed her, slowly, just enough distance to not be obvious, but close enough to hear the click of her heels on marble and the sudden, hollow sound of a stall door slamming shut. I stood outside the hallway, pretending to check my phone, but I wasn't reading a damn thing. My mind was loud now. So loud. What would I even say if I spoke to her? "Hey Laurel, remember me? The man you emotionally disemboweled and discarded like a receipt? Nice dress. Is betrayal still your favorite color? Or maybe just nothing. Maybe I just needed to see it. To see that she wasn't untouchable. That time chipped away at her too. That the version of her I used to love had cracks now. Cracks she couldn't hide with lip gloss and expensive shoes. And then, just when I convinced myself to turn around and disappear like a ghost, she stepped out. Eyes red. Lips trembling. No mask this time. No armor. She looked up and saw me. Really saw me. Her whole body froze. Like the air got knocked out of her lungs. Her hands gripped the edges of the sink. And for a second, just one painful, stretched out second, I think she forgot how to breathe. "Ellis," she said, her voice small. Smaller than I ever remembered. And all I could think was, so she does remember my name after all. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but I felt it like a slap. "Ellis?" Not, "Oh my God." Not, "Is it really you?" Not even a nervous laugh. Just my name, like it had slipped out before her brain could catch up. She looked at me like people look at gravestones, surprised they're still standing after everything buried beneath them. I didn't say anything right away. I wanted to watch her face. Not in a creepy way. In a forensic one. Like I was examining evidence. Her mascara was still smudged beneath her lower lashes, and her lipstick was rubbed clean off one side of her mouth, probably from wiping away tears with her hand. This wasn't the woman who left me. This wasn't even the woman I used to love. This was someone else entirely. A version life had chewed up and spit out while I was busy building a new version of myself. "You look," she started, then stopped. Her voice cracked on the second word. "You look different." I let a half-smile stretch across my face. It wasn't joy. It wasn't revenge. It was the bitter amusement of knowing that someone who once thought you were too small to matter now has to acknowledge your presence again. "I guess people change," I said. She laughed once, short, hollow, like it surprised her. "I wasn't sure it was you. I saw you in the ballroom. Thought I was hallucinating. You look like someone who wasn't abandoned in the middle of a Thursday." I offered. Her jaw clenched. The silence between us stretched, like the floor might open up and swallow the awkwardness whole. She looked like she wanted to say 1,000 things, and none of them were the right ones. I could see the gears turning in her head, trying to find the version of me she left behind. The soft-spoken guy who'd flinch at conflict and fold himself small just to keep the peace. He wasn't here. I leaned slightly against the wall, arms crossed. Not defensive, just grounded. Still, I had all the time in the world. Let her speak. "Laurel," I finally said, breaking the tension. "Why are you here?" She blinked, like the question caught her off guard. "My firm does PR for the client hosting this." "I didn't know you'd be." "No reason you would," I interrupted. "I don't usually send my whereabouts in envelopes and Polaroids." That hit her. Hard. Her mouth twitched like she wanted to defend herself, but couldn't find the words. Good. I didn't want apologies. Not yet. I wanted clarity. I wanted to see if she could speak the truth without choking on it. She looked down, then said quietly, "I deserve that." I didn't respond. I let the silence do the talking. "Look," she said, finally lifting her eyes again, "I don't expect anything. I'm not here to do whatever this is. She paused, voice faltering. "I saw you and I panicked. You were the last person I ever expected to see tonight." "You cried," I said bluntly. She flinched. "In the ballroom. You saw me, and you cried." She bit her bottom lip hard. I could see the war happening behind her eyes. She wanted to pretend it was nothing, maybe even lie. But she didn't. "I did," she admitted. "I cried because seeing you reminded me who I used to be, who I chose to be, and because it didn't feel like looking at an old lover. It felt like looking at someone I wronged so deeply I might never forgive myself." Now that caught me off guard. For the first time in years, I saw genuine shame on her face. And it didn't make me feel good. It didn't even make me feel vindicated. It just made me feel tired. I didn't expect her to fall to her knees and beg. I didn't even expect her to feel guilty. But hearing it, seeing it, cracked something open in me I didn't know was still sealed. I could have walked away, could have said good night, and left her standing there in her trembling confession. But something in her tone made me stay. I needed to know more. Not to rekindle, not to reconnect, just to understand. To finally connect the dots from the man I used to be to the man I became. So I asked the one question that had haunted me for years. What happened, Laurel? What really happened after you left? She stared at me. And then, after a long breath, she said, "You want the truth? Then follow me. I can't say it here." We didn't speak as we walked. The hallway felt too quiet, like even the air didn't want to get in the way. Laurel led the way with quick, uncertain steps. I followed behind, each footfall heavier than the last. I wasn't nervous, not exactly. I was bracing. You don't follow someone like her into a conversation like this unless you're ready to relive everything you tried to forget. We turned a corner and found a service hallway, narrow, dim, smelling faintly of lemon cleaner and industrial carpet. She stopped near an emergency exit door with a red glow buzzing above it, and she leaned against the wall like she needed it to hold her upright. Her arms were folded tightly across her chest, not from confidence, but from cold. Or guilt. Maybe both. "I haven't talked about this. Not to anyone," she said, avoiding my eyes. "Not even to Alec." The name hit the air like a sharp object. She said it casually, but I caught the flicker in her voice, the way it strained just slightly, like the word tasted sour in her mouth now. "I don't need you to confess anything for my sake," I told her, arms still crossed. "I've already lived through the part where you disappear without answers." "I know," she whispered. "That's why I'm going to tell you everything." I nodded once, silently giving her permission. And then, finally, the truth began to unravel. "You remember that morning I left, right?" she said. "You probably thought I went straight to him. That we ran off, started some passionate affair in the city, lit candles in hotel rooms, and laughed at how I got away with it." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. That was what I pictured, her wrapped up in some new man's bedsheets while I cried over receipts and empty drawers. "I didn't," she said. "I didn't go to Alec that day. In fact, I didn't even call him until weeks later." I raised an eyebrow. "You expect me to believe that after the photos? The messages?" She looked at me then, not with defiance, but with something closer to shame. "I didn't say I wasn't guilty. I was. I betrayed you. Emotionally. Mentally. I did things that should have ended us long before I had the guts to leave. But Alec? He wasn't what you think." I waited. She continued. "I thought he was this wild, electric force. He made me feel wanted. You were always so calm, so quiet. And I hated myself for resenting that. I confused stability with boredom. I thought if I didn't feel chaos, I wasn't in love. So I chased chaos. I made it romantic in my head. I told myself you were the problem, that you made me feel trapped." She was trembling now. Her eyes didn't hold that cold sharpness anymore. Just regret. "But Alec wasn't chaos," she said. "He was a mask. A mirror I projected my fantasies onto. And when the reality hit, when I finally spent a week with him after I left you, I realized something terrifying." "What?" "That he never loved me either. He loved the idea of taking something that didn't belong to him." That landed heavier than I expected. She looked down. "He started getting possessive. Controlling. And not in the harmless way. He'd blow up if I didn't text back fast enough. Got jealous of me even talking to coworkers. And when I told him I wanted space, he didn't react like a hurt man. He reacted like I was an object slipping out of his hands." My gut twisted. I hated her for what she did to me. But no one deserves that. "I left him 3 months later," she said. "Changed my number. Moved into a sublet. Lost my job because I couldn't focus. My parents didn't want to get involved. And I just unraveled. Quietly. No drama. No rescue arc. Just me, in a small room, trying to understand how I went from married and loved to that." She finally looked me in the eyes. "You were the last good thing in my life. And I destroyed it." The words echoed. They weren't enough. Nothing could be enough, really. But still, hearing them, it chipped something in me. "I don't need your apology," I said, voice low. "I needed it 3 years ago. Now, I just need to know why it was so easy for you to lie." Why you let me believe I was the problem? That I wasn't exciting enough, man enough, human enough to keep you interested. Her eyes filled again. Because I didn't think I deserved you. So I convinced myself you didn't deserve me either. That silence again. And then she asked something I never saw coming. Ellis, would you have taken me back if I had come back sooner? It felt like a trap. A dangerous question dressed in vulnerability. But I didn't answer right away. Because for the first time in 3 years, I didn't know the answer. There are questions you spend your whole life rehearsing answers for. You practice them in the shower, in traffic, in dreams that leave you sweating. And then, when someone finally asks, you freeze. Not because you don't know the answer, but because the answer might ruin you. Laurel's question, would I have taken her back, wasn't just curiosity. It was a test, a doorway. And I knew that whatever I said next would change the dynamic between us forever. I could see it in her eyes. Part guilt, part hope, part something darker, buried beneath years of regret. I didn't speak for a long time. Not to be dramatic. I just honestly didn't know. 3 years is a long time to rehearse your pain into something manageable, and even longer to convince yourself you wouldn't crumble if faced with the one who caused it. And then, without planning to, I said it. I would have said yes. The words left my mouth before I had time to polish them, soften them, turn them into something wiser. And yet, they rang with a strange kind of truth. Not because I still loved her, but because the version of me she left, the man who begged for reasons, who waited by the phone, who looked at the front door every night like it might open, he would have said yes. She didn't smile, didn't cry. She just nodded, as if confirming something she already knew but needed to hear out loud. I thought so, she whispered. We stood there in the hallway like two ghosts revisiting the scene of the accident. And for a second, a single, fragile second, it almost felt like we were back in the kitchen on a lazy Sunday morning, her making tea, me trying to reach the high cabinet without knocking over the spice rack. Safe. Stupid. Soft. But that second passed. You didn't ask if I would have come back, she said, voice quieter now. Would you have? Her lips parted, but she didn't speak. Instead, she looked past me, toward the ballroom. That depends on what version of myself you were willing to accept. I don't think you would have liked who I became, Ellis. Not then. That's the thing, I said. You never gave me the chance. She nodded again, slowly, like she was taking in the weight of her own legacy. Then came the second shock of the night. She reached into her small silver clutch and pulled out something I never thought I'd see again, my old house key. The one I gave her the night we moved in together. It had the chipped corner and the faded red rubber tip she used to chew on when she was anxious. She held it between us like it was radioactive. I never threw it away, she said. I don't know why. I moved 6 times, lost whole boxes of stuff, but this I kept. Not because I thought I'd use it again, but because it reminded me of who I used to be when I had it. Someone better. Someone decent. I didn't reach for it. I didn't want it back. She lowered her hand, seeming to understand. She tucked it away like she was burying a part of herself for good. And just when I thought the night had given up its final surprise, I heard a voice echo down the hallway. Male, sharp, irritated. There you are. We both turned. Alec. It had to be. The guy from the ballroom. The one with the tattoo and the tired eyes. He walked toward us with the kind of forced calm that made my skin crawl. Not quite angry, but definitely performing neutrality for the sake of witnesses. Everything okay here? He asked Laurel, eyes locked on me. Laurel didn't answer right away. She straightened her back, wiped the last of the smudged makeup from beneath her eyes, and faced him without flinching. We're talking, she said. That's all. He glanced at me, then back to her. His jaw was tight. You've been gone for almost half an hour. People are asking questions. I don't care, she said flatly. Let them ask. Alec stepped closer, not threatening, but enough that I instinctively shifted my stance. I didn't know what his story was, whether he was just a bad boyfriend or something worse. But I'd seen enough in Laurel's expression to know that whatever was between them now wasn't love. He looked at me again. Who are you? I didn't answer. Laurel did. He's the man I should have never left. That silence again. Except this time, it was loaded with something new. Tension. A warning. A fuse waiting to light. Alec's face didn't move. No expression. Just that cold, unreadable stare. And in that moment, I realized something. This wasn't over. Not even close. Alec didn't blink. There's something terrifying about a man who doesn't yell when most would, who doesn't posture, doesn't clench his fists, doesn't try to physically intimidate, not because he's above it, but because he doesn't need to. His control was quieter, more clinical. A steady pressure that made you second-guess whether it was even happening. That kind of man doesn't bark orders. He lets you walk straight into your own leash. I could see it in the way he tilted his head, the way his hands remained relaxed at his sides while his eyes locked onto mine like a problem he didn't want to solve. He wanted to contain. Laurel stood between us now, arms still folded, but the energy had shifted. She wasn't protecting me. She was shielding herself. And for the first time since our conversation began, I saw the full weight of what she'd been living under. Alec's voice broke the silence, cold and even. "Let's go, Laurel." It wasn't a request. She didn't move. He gave her a small, amused smirk. Not anger. Confidence. Like he already knew how this would end. "Laurel," he said again, slightly firmer, "we talked about this. You said you wouldn't make a scene tonight." It was subtle, but I saw it. The tiniest flicker in her eyes. Guilt, maybe. Fear. Resignation. Like her body was wired to respond to that tone, like a trained reflex. That same reflex I used to see when I raised my voice during an argument. And she would smile too quickly, change the subject, tell me she was just tired. Back then, I thought she was avoiding conflict. Now I realized she had been preparing for him long before he even showed up. I stepped forward, just once, just enough to break the illusion of control Alec had built around us. "She's not going anywhere with you if she doesn't want to." He turned toward me, slowly, as if I'd just flicked his temple in a quiet room. Still no raised voice. Still no drama. But the temperature dropped. I could feel it. "This is a private matter," he said, eyes narrowing. "I'm going to give you a few seconds to walk away." And there it was, the real him. Just beneath the suit, beneath the fake civility and the PR smile. The kind of man who practices his tone like a scalpel. "Laurel," I said without taking my eyes off Alec. "Do you want to go with him?" She didn't answer. That silence felt like it lasted a lifetime. And then, with a breath so shaky I could see her shoulders move, she whispered, "No." Alec's jaw flexed once. Just once. Then he smiled again, that same hollow grin. "You've had your closure," he said, voice syrupy now, like he was speaking to a child. "Let's not make this into a memory you'll regret." My hand tightened at my side. I wasn't a fighter. I wasn't built for confrontation. But something ancient and unfamiliar was boiling in me. Not rage. Resolve. The kind that only grows after years of swallowing your voice. "I'm not going to touch you," I told him. "But if you take one more step toward her, I'll make sure every person in that ballroom knows who you are when the lights come back on." That did it. For the first time, I saw his mask slip, just for a second. His eyes darkened, his smile faltered. He didn't like being threatened, especially not by someone he had already dismissed as insignificant. He thought I was decoration, a ghost, a footnote in her past. Now he saw I was something else entirely. Then came the curveball. Laurel stepped forward, slowly, and said, "It's over, Alec. You know it. You've known it for a while. I just didn't have the guts to say it before tonight." He stared at her like she'd betrayed some silent pact. His mouth opened like he wanted to argue, maybe plead, maybe punish, but no words came. She reached into her purse and pulled out something, a hotel keycard. She held it out to him like a peace offering, though her hand trembled. "You don't have to leave angry," she said. "Just leave." He didn't take the card. He stared at it, and then at her, and then at me. And then, with the eerie calm of someone filing a grudge for later, he turned around and walked away. No slam. No threats. Just gone. The hallway exhaled. Laurel leaned back against the wall, her strength collapsing all at once. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just let herself be quiet in a way that didn't feel like surrender. It felt like relief. I stood next to her. Not touching. Just present. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly. "I didn't do it for you," I replied. "I did it for the part of me you left behind." He deserved to say something. She nodded, slowly. "So now what?" I looked at her, and for the first time all night, I didn't feel bitterness. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt done. Not in the hollow, vengeful way, but in the quiet, irreversible way you feel when a story ends, and you know it's time to close the book. "I think," I said, "we go back in there separately. We shake hands with people we'll forget tomorrow. We smile for the clients. and then we go our separate ways. She nodded again. Not sad, not relieved, just real. As I walked back toward the ballroom, the music picked up again. Glasses clinked. Laughter rose. The world hadn't changed. But I had. And she had, too. We weren't who we were. And we'd never be those people again. The ballroom was louder when I returned, like nothing had happened at all. The jazz trio had picked up tempo. Laughter spilled from champagne-fueled conversations, and waiters glided between tables like they were choreographed. But to me, everything felt muffled, like I was underwater watching a different world move on without me. I didn't look for Laurel. I didn't need to. Whatever was said, whatever wasn't, it all landed where it needed to. I wasn't interested in performing the rest of the night like some dramatic epilogue. I shook the hands I was supposed to shake, gave the head nods and professional smiles, and then disappeared out the side entrance before dessert. The cold night air hit me like a wall. Sharp. Grounding. Honest. I walked 2 blocks without realizing where I was going, past neon-lit cafes and taxi horns, and a couple fighting under a street lamp about God knows what. It was strange how normal everything felt again, after the most surreal conversation of my adult life. You spend so long preparing for closure, building it up like a final boss battle in your head, and then it happens, and life just continues. But part of me knew it wasn't quite over. Not yet. Some things don't shut cleanly. They click, jam, hesitate just before the final lock. And I was right. It happened at 1:38 a.m. I had just returned to my apartment, peeled off the suit jacket, unbuttoned the collar, stared at my own reflection in the microwave door like a man who'd survived something unspeakable. That's when my phone buzzed. Laurel. Not a call. A text. I know I should have let it end there. But there's something else I never told you. Something I've been carrying that I think you deserve to know. I don't want to send it over text. Just tell me if I can call you. I stared at the screen. For maybe 5 full minutes. It would have been so easy to ignore it. Just lock the phone, toss it on the couch, pour myself a drink, and let the curtain fall. But curiosity is a drug. And closure, once tasted, makes you crave the full dose. So I typed one word. Sure. The call came seconds later. No hesitation. No breathing room. She was waiting, phone in hand, expecting me to cave. And I had. Her voice was soft, strained, but not emotional this time. It felt like she had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times in her head. Like she'd finally accepted she couldn't live with it any longer. There's something I need to tell you about the day I left, she said. Something you never found out. And I don't want to carry it anymore. I didn't speak. I just waited. Heart steady. Eyes fixed on the darkened window reflecting my own exhausted face. I was pregnant, she said. Back then, just a few weeks. I didn't know for sure until the morning I packed my bags. I hadn't even told Alec. I hadn't told anyone. I barely had time to process it before everything started unraveling. I felt the blood drain from my face. I thought it was yours, she said, voice barely a whisper. I wanted to believe it was yours. But after the timelines blurred, I couldn't be sure. And I couldn't. I couldn't bring that into the chaos I was running toward. I was already lying, already breaking everything, and the idea of becoming a mother in that mess, it crushed me. I couldn't move. Not a twitch. Not a word. Just silence pressing against my eardrums like pressure underwater. I didn't keep it, she continued, her voice cracking. I made the decision alone, and I've lived with it every single day since. But you deserve to know. Not because I want forgiveness. Not because I expect anything from you. But because part of the life we built, even if it was just a heartbeat, existed. And I buried it without you. There was nothing left to say. Not in that moment. The air between us was too full. Of regret. Of history. Of things that once could have been. I'm sorry, she whispered, almost like a reflex. I know it doesn't change anything. I just couldn't keep lying by omission. And then, she hung up. No goodbye. No breath to spare. Just silence. I sat on the edge of my bed for a long time after that. Not crying. Not angry. Just stunned. Like someone had opened a door to a room I never knew existed in my own house. A room that had always been there, waiting, full of shadows and unopened boxes. And now, suddenly, I had to live with knowing it was real. I didn't sleep that night. I just stared at the ceiling, trying to imagine the version of myself who might have become a father without even knowing it. The version of Laurel who might have stayed, might have healed, might have built something with me instead of tearing it all apart. But imagination is poison when it feeds on what you've lost. By morning, one thing was clear. I couldn't carry this alone either. Not anymore. Morning came slowly, like it was unsure whether I was ready for it. But I was. I had already lived 1,000 lifetimes in that one night. Enough pain to last a decade. Enough clarity to last a lifetime. I got up early, before the city stirred. Made coffee the way I always did. Strong, bitter, honest. I didn't open social media. I didn't check my email. I just stood at the window with the mug in both hands and watched the sun climb over the rooftops like it, too, had survived something. The strange thing about truth is that once it's out, even if it hurts, it makes space for something new. Not forgiveness, maybe, but something softer than rage. Something that doesn't rot you from the inside out. I thought a lot about the baby Laurel never had. I didn't spiral, surprisingly. I didn't collapse under the weight of what if. I just acknowledged it. Gave it a name in my mind. A short moment of silence. A kind of goodbye. That was enough. Around noon, I left the apartment and walked to the park. No destination in mind. Just movement. I passed a bench I used to sit on when I was first rebuilding my life. When I still thought healing looked like progress and not peace. Funny how we measure recovery in milestones when sometimes it's just waking up and not feeling heavy. My phone buzzed again. Laurel. But this time, it wasn't a question. It was a simple message. Thank you for hearing me. I'm not reaching out again. I just wanted to say you were always more than enough. I see that now. I hope you find someone who sees it too, without needing to lose you first. I stared at the text for a while. And then, for the first time in years, I smiled without bitterness. I didn't reply. Not out of cruelty. Out of closure. Some goodbyes don't need punctuation. That night, I met a friend for dinner. One of the new ones I'd made after the divorce. Someone who knew me only as I am now, not as I was. We laughed over bad sushi and talked about a trip we might take to Oregon next spring. There was no dramatic reveal, no confession of past heartbreak. Just conversation. Present. Light. Real. A few days later, I boxed up the last of Laurel's things, not because I had to, but because I was finally ready. I didn't burn them, didn't throw them away. I donated most of it. Kept one photo. Not of her, of me. From a trip we took to Maine. I was standing alone on a cliff, arms wide, the ocean behind me. I looked small, but free. That photo now sits on my desk. A reminder. Not of her. Of me. Of who I became. Not because she left, but because I stayed. Stayed present. Stayed alive. Stayed open. I still don't believe everything happens for a reason. Some things are just cruel. But I do believe we choose what to do with the damage. And I chose peace.